Nenka, silence speaks far louder than words ever can. People often assume that the more they talk, the more they are understood, the more they are respected, the more they are known. But that's not how life works. Most of the noise you hear around you is not communication, it's confusion. When you open your mouth too often, you release what little clarity you have. But when you keep it shut, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start listening not just to others, but to life itself. You start to notice that behind every sound, behind every moment, there's a rhythm, a balance, a quiet intelligence at play. When you are constantly talking, you are trapped in your own echo. You keep recycling the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same identities. Silence breaks that cycle. Silence is not emptiness, it is full of awareness. When you stop speaking for a while, you realize how much of your life has been spent trying to convince others of things you yourself were not sure of. The tongue moves faster than the mind, and in that race, truth is lost. But when you pause, when you hold back, when you simply sit and watch, you begin to see, truly see, what's happening inside you. People think silence is boring, but boredom only comes when your mind is noisy. If you sit silently for even a few minutes without doing anything, you'll notice how restless your thoughts are. That restlessness is not because of the silence, it's because you've never truly been with yourself. You've spent your life running from one distraction to another, and now when there's nothing left to distract you, you feel uncomfortable. But if you sit through that discomfort, something magical happens. The mind begins to settle. The chaos starts to dissolve. What was once noise becomes music. You start to sense life's pulse, beating quietly beneath everything. Keeping your mouth shut doesn't mean suppressing your thoughts, it means mastering them. Words are not bad, but words without consciousness are dangerous. Every word you speak is an energy release, and once it's out, you cannot take it back. Think of how many times you've said something in anger, only to regret moments later. You can't rewind time, you can't erase it, and no amount of apology can undo the sting it caused. But silence never needs regret, it never hurts anyone, it never needs justification, it never demands repair. That's why the wisest ones throughout history, saints, mystics, sages, all valued silence as the foundation of wisdom. In silence, you begin to perceive the subtlety of existence. You notice the breath entering your body, the heart beating on its own, the sensations that rise and fall without your control. Life is happening effortlessly, yet we miss it because we're too busy talking about it. When you stop trying to describe life, you start experiencing it. Words divide reality into pieces, but silence unites it. Words can build arguments, but silence builds understanding. Many people think silence is a luxury, something you find only in temples or mountains. But silence is not a place, it's a presence. You can be silent even in the middle of a crowd. It's not about not speaking, it's about being still within. When you reach that state, even if you must speak, your words will carry power. Your voice will not be just noise, it will be truth, because silence refines your expression. When you emerge from silence, every word becomes intentional, precise, alive. The greatest mistake people make is confusing talking with knowing. The more they speak, the more they feel they are in control. But speaking without awareness only exposes your ignorance faster. You can say 1,000 things and still say nothing. Or you can say nothing and express everything. The difference lies in how deeply you see. If you can see life clearly, even your silence becomes a teaching. If you cannot, even your words become a disturbance. Watch nature for a moment. The trees stand silently, yet they are full of life. The sun rises and sets without a word, yet it sustains the entire planet. The flowers bloom quietly, the rivers flow effortlessly, the stars shine without noise. Everything that truly sustains life happens in silence. Only human beings make noise to prove their existence. But life doesn't need to announce itself, it simply is. Silence is the language of existence. When you align yourself with that, you no longer feel the need to be heard, cause you realize you are already part of something that is constantly speaking, wordlessly, beautifully. Keeping your mouth shut is not about restraint out of fear, it's about restraint out of awareness. It's realizing that every sound you make has a consequence, that every word is a seed that will grow into something. If you plant words of anger, they will grow into conflict. If you plant words of truth, they will grow into peace. But if you plant silence, it grows into wisdom. It gives you space to observe before you act, to understand before you respond. That space is where intelligence blossoms. People often ask how to find peace. You cannot find peace through more words. You cannot argue your way into peace. You cannot shout your way into peace. You cannot shout your way into peace. You cannot demand peace. Peace appears when the noise inside you subsides. When you stop defending your opinions, when you stop proving your identity, when you stop trying to win every conversation, that's when peace begins. Begins? It's not something you do, it's something that unfolds naturally. When you stop interfering with life, silence is a mirror. It shows you who you are. Sometimes that reflection is uncomfortable. You'll see your insecurities, your false beliefs. But if you stay with it, if you don't escape through words or distractions, that mirror starts to clear. You begin to recognize the part of you that's always been still, the awareness behind all the noise. Once you touch that silence within, no amount of chaos outside can shake you. Keeping your mouth shut, therefore, is not a small act. It's a spiritual discipline. It's not about cutting off communication, it's about deepening it. Because when you are silent, your presence speaks louder than your voice ever could. People feel it. They sense the calm, the depth, the balance in you. You don't have to convince anyone. They can feel your truth. When you stop talking unnecessarily, you reclaim your energy. You stop scattering it across meaningless conversations and start directing it toward creation. You start listening more to others, to yourself, to life. And in that listening, wisdom begins to unfold naturally. You don't need to collect knowledge, it arises within you. The universe has always been speaking, you were just too noisy to hear. So sometimes the most profound thing you can do is simply close your mouth and open your awareness. Because when your words stop, your understanding begins. And when understanding begins, life starts revealing its secrets to you in silence, in stillness, in presence, in presence. People often ruin relationships, destroy opportunities and lose peace of mind not because they did something terrible, but because they said something unnecessary. One careless word can wound deeper than a sword, and one sentence spoken in anger can burn bridges that took years to build. This is the unseen damage caused by too many words. Most people are not aware that their tongue has more power than any weapon created by man. It can heal or harm, uplift or destroy, unite or divide. Sadhguru often says that if you cannot control your tongue, you cannot control your life. Because your words are not just sounds, they are energy, they are vibration, they are creation. Every time you open your mouth without awareness, you release energy without purpose. That energy, instead of working for you, starts working against you. When you speak without thought, you give others the power to interpret, misquote and misuse what you said. And once a word leaves your mouth, it no longer belongs to you. You cannot pull it back, you cannot erase it, you cannot edit it. The damage is done. Think about how many arguments in your life could have been avoided if you had simply paused for 2 seconds before speaking. Think of the pain, the guilt, the misunderstandings that could have been prevented if you had just chosen silence instead of reaction. But silence is difficult because ego thrives on expression. The ego always wants the last word, always wants to prove a point, always wants to show it is right. It doesn't care about peace, it cares about power. And so we argue, we defend, we explain, we attack, all to protect an image that is not even real. But a person who has truly understood life doesn't fight to be right, they strive to be at peace. They know that silence cannot be twisted, silence cannot be misquoted, and silence cannot be regretted. It's the one weapon that harms no one yet protects you completely. People believe that by talking more they appear smart. But the truth is, the more you talk, the more you reveal what you don't know. A wise person doesn't need to display knowledge. Their calmness speaks louder than their vocabulary. When you meet someone who truly knows, you'll notice. They speak less, but every word carries weight. Their silence itself feels like communication because it is charged with awareness. In contrast, the talkative mind leaks energy like a broken vessel. It may sound confident, but inside it's restless, scattered, fragile. Words are meant to build, but when used unconsciously, they destroy. A simple sentence like, "You always do this," or "You never listen," can trigger pain in another person that lasts for years. The problem is not the sentence, it's the emotion behind it. Anger, frustration or resentment. Once you give emotion to words, they become arrows. And arrows don't care whom they hurt. Most of the suffering people experience in relationships is not because of action but because of speech. A relationship can survive mistakes, but it rarely survives disrespect. When you keep your mouth shut in a moment of anger, you protect your peace and your dignity. You might think silence makes you weak, but in reality, it makes you powerful. Because silence means you have control, not over others but over yourself. It means you are no longer reacting from emotion, you are responding from awareness. And that difference between reaction and response is what separates the wise from the foolish. People often say, I just say whatever comes to my mind. But that's not honesty, that's irresponsibility. Yin. Honesty is not blurting out everything you feel, it's knowing what's worth saying. And when it's worth saying, there's a time for truth and there's a way to express it. When your words are driven by ego, they create resistance, and they are guided by awareness, they create transformation. Sadhguru often says, your tongue can be the most powerful tool for your spiritual growth, if you learn how to use it consciously. Every word you speak leaves an imprint, not only in the minds of others, but also in your own system. If you speak harshly, your own body experiences the vibration of that harshness. If you speak lovingly, your system feels the peace of that love. This is why people who constantly gossip or argue always look drained and heavy, because they are poisoning their own inner space with their speech. But those who speak with awareness or remain silent carry a different energy, calm, centered, radiant. There's an ancient saying that a fool is known by his words, but a wise man is known by his silence. The more you mature, the more you realize that not every thought deserves to become a word. Not every situation deserves a comment. Not every insult deserves a reply. When you understand this, your life becomes simpler, your mind becomes quieter, and your energy becomes stronger. Keeping your mouth shut doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you understand that your feelings are your responsibility, not the world's. You don't need to express every emotion through words. Sometimes, sitting with it silently, breathing through it, and letting it dissolve is far more powerful than any conversation. Because silence heals what words often worsen. A true master of life is not someone who can speak beautifully. It's someone who can remain silent gracefully. The world doesn't need more words, it needs more awareness. And awareness begins the moment you stop reacting and start observing. When you can watch your urge to speak, when you can feel that rising impulse to respond and still choose silence, that's when you become truly powerful. Because now your words are no longer your weakness, they are your weapon of wisdom. So before you speak, ask yourself, is it necessary, is it kind, is it true? If the answer is no to any of these, keep your mouth shut, because silence will never betray you, but your words might. And once you master the art of speaking less and listening more, you'll realize that most of life's chaos was created by your own noise. And when that noise stops, clarity begins. Keeping your mouth shut doesn't mean you are weak, it means you have learned to master your inner world. In a world that worships loudness, loud opinions, loud emotions, loud egos, silence has become the most underrated strength. People assume that the one who speaks the most has the most power. But the truth is, real power often moves without words. A calm mind, a composed presence, a silent observer, these are signs of true mastery. You don't need to shout to make an impact. Your energy speaks louder than your voice ever could. Silence is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of understanding. It's a space where you no longer need to prove, argue or explain. Explain. When you are silent, you can hear life speaking in ways most people miss. The rhythm of your breath, the sound of your heartbeat, the whispers of intuition that guide you toward clarity. When your mouth is closed, your perception opens. You stop reacting to the chaos around you and start responding to the intelligence within you. That is what Sadhguru means when he says, when you know how to be silent, you know how to live. The world is full of people who are busy talking, debating, gossiping, complaining, explaining, but how many are truly listening? When you talk, you only repeat what you already… but when you already know. But when you listen, you learn something new. And silence is the highest form of listening, not just to others, but to existence itself. In silence, the noise of the ego fades away. You begin to see how little control you actually have and how much life is happening effortlessly without your interference. That realization brings humility. And humility brings wisdom. Keeping your mouth shut doesn't mean shutting down communication, it means speaking only when your words can improve silence. Most people speak to fill space because they are uncomfortable with stillness. But when you can sit silently without needing to distract yourself or others, you have reached a level of maturity where peace becomes your natural state. This silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It's the fullness of awareness, the richness of presence. In that space, even your smallest action carries a depth that endless talking can never achieve. When you are silent, you save your energy. You stop scattering it across meaningless conversations, arguments and judgments. Have you noticed how tired you feel after long discussions that lead nowhere? That's not physical fatigue, it's energetic depletion. Every word you speak consumes life energy. But when you preserve that energy through silence, it turns inward and starts nourishing your awareness. It sharpens your focus, deepens your insight, and strengthens your intuition. You become more grounded, more balanced, more powerful. The strongest people in the world are not the loud ones, they are the ones who can stand calm when everyone else is losing control. Silence gives you that power. It gives you their power, it gives you the ability to choose peace over reaction, clarity over chaos. When someone insults you, your silence shows that their words cannot touch you. When the world becomes noisy with negativity, your calm presence becomes a reminder that not all battles deserve your energy. You begin to realize that peace is not found by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. Silence also reveals truth. When you stop speaking, you start observing not just others but yourself. You notice the way thoughts rise and fall, the way emotions shift, the way the mind plays tricks. And as you keep watching without reacting, you begin to see the difference between who you are and what your mind is doing. This is self-realization in its simplest form. Words can take you closer to knowledge, but silence takes you closer to truth, because truth doesn't need language, it simply is. In silence, you stop reacting and start responding. Reaction comes from emotion, response comes from awareness. Most people react instantly to every situation, and in that reaction, they lose their balance. But when you are silent, you create space between what happens and how you respond. In that space lies your freedom, your wisdom, your power. That is why Sadhguru often says, silence is not inaction, it is the highest form of action. When you move in silence, you no longer chase recognition or validation. You stop needing the world to notice your worth because your worth is no longer dependent on noise. You become like nature, powerful yet quiet. The sun doesn't announce its arrival every morning. It simply rises and everything wakes up. The moon doesn't boast about its beauty, it simply shines and the world gazes in awe. The river doesn't speak about its journey, it just flows and nourishes everything in its path. In your silence, others may misunderstand you, but that's okay. Let them. You don't owe explanations to those who thrive on noise. You owe peace to yourself. The one who has tasted silence no longer finds pleasure in meaningless. You begin to value quiet moments, deep presence and truthful interactions. You start surrounding yourself with people who speak less and understand more, because silence attracts depth and noise attracts distraction. The world today is desperate for attention. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated. But the more you chase that, the more you lose your inner stillness. The one who remains silent, observant, and aware becomes magnetic without effort. People are drawn to them, not because of what they say, but because of what they emanate. Stability, calmness, wisdom. Silence gives birth to an aura that words can never create. Keeping your mouth shut also teaches you patience. It trains you to watch life unfold without the need to interfere constantly. When you stop trying to control every outcome with your speech and opinions, you begin to trust the flow of life. You realize that not everything needs your comment, not every argument needs your participation, and not every situation needs your voice. Sometimes silence solves what words complicate. And when the time comes to speak, your words will carry a new kind of power, the power of silence behind them. Because words born out of silence are not random sounds, they are instruments of transformation. They carry the vibration of truth. People will feel your words, not just hear them. You won't need to shout. Your presence will do the talking. That is the strength of silence. It doesn't demand attention, it commands it. It doesn't seek validation, it radiates confidence. It doesn't need to explain, it simply reveals. And once you understand this, you'll realize that silence is not an escape, it's your evolution. Because when you learn to keep your mouth shut, you open the door to your highest wisdom, your deepest peace and your truest power. ChatGPT said, "So, my dear ones, remember this, silence is not your weakness, it is your weapon. In a world that cannot stop talking, dare to be the one who listens." When everyone rushes to prove their point, be the one who understands. When chaos screams for your reaction, smile, stay calm and let your silence roar louder than 1,000 voices. Don't waste your words on people who don't value your wisdom. Don't trade your peace for the urge to be right. To be right? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Let your calmness confuse the noise. Let your silence teach what words never can. Let your presence become your loudest statement. You are not here to shout, you are here to shine. The lion doesn't roar at every bark, it walks with quiet majesty. Be that lion, be so centered, so still, that even storms feel peace in your presence. The world may try to pull you into its noise, but rise above it. Speak only when your words carry the weight of truth and stay silent when your silence carries more wisdom than speech. Remember, silence is not emptiness, it is full of strength. It is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of understanding. You don't always have to explain yourself, your peace is explanation enough. You don't have to shout to be heard. Your energy speaks before your words ever do. So walk through life like the sky, vast, still, unshaken. When the winds of gossip, anger and noise try to move you, remain untouched. Let your silence become your signature. Let your calmness become your crown. Because the day you learn to control your tongue, that day you will conquer your world. And when you finally master the art of silence, you won't just speak less, you will speak truth. You won't just listen more, you will understand deeply. And in that understanding lies your true power. Because only the one who has mastered silence has truly mastered life.